What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have yet another album review for you. So yet another one that I had my eyes on for the week of the 24th of March was the latest offering from Angerot, the Profound Recreant. Again, this one comes on the 24th of March on Redefining Darkness Records. This band formed in 2017 in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. There's something about the Dakotas right now that seems to be spawning a lot of killer bands like Maul, Phobophilic, Ghostbath. I don't know, it doesn't seem like a place where metal would actually hang out very much, but here we are with some more Dakota metal. This is their third full-length overall. I was first made aware of these guys courtesy of the Metalhead box. I got a copy of their first album, The Splendid Iniquity. I really dug it. It was some HM2 filthy bloodbath worship. Of course, I love that. Went out and got their second album, The Divine Apostate, which was even grander and even more evil sounding, but also still had that HM2 sound. And I think the natural progression here was to get even more grand, because I think this is their biggest album yet. So this is straight up death metal, very much along the lines of European death metal. This band definitely seems to take more of its cues from European bands. Namely, I would say like Swedish bands, of course, because the HM2 tone is once again on display. But I think this time there's even more of a focus on atmosphere and making this sound as evil as possible. And while it gets off to a very interesting start with the intro track, Das Souls, it is a German choir. It's a male choir, or at least like layered male vocals to create these very sullen, very German harmonies. And it's actually kind of interesting. It's very haunting right away. But the first thing that I thought of was, this is like Rammstein going Christmas caroling. And then I thought it was like, well, how are they going to squeeze in all the pyrotechnics, and how quick are they going to get arrested for all that shit? I don't think they should rule it out, though. I think Rammstein doing Christmas caroling could be a lot of fucking fun. But that interesting setup goes into They Shall Take Up Serpents, and this album just explodes sonically into HM2 buzzsaw-driven guitars. They're thick, they're meaty, lots of roared and screamed vocals. There is this sort of hellish, tormented atmosphere to this entire album, and a lot of that is due to vocal dynamics on here. It feels like roars and screams come from different points of the room at you, and they're all yelling directly in your ear. And you couple that with the lumbering grooves and these big chuggy riffs and the occasional synths that, you know, kind of pepper in some creepy atmosphere. This is a very dark, foreboding listen. And this is absolutely loaded with huge guest stars on here, like namely Sammy Duet of Goat Horror and Acid Bath coming in and doing some leads, as well as Andy LaRocque from fucking Death and King Diamond throwing in leads as well. We also have Steve Tucker from Morbid Angel doing vocals, and Simon Olsen of Bast doing vocals as well. There's also a guest keyboardist on here who peppers in a lot of cool atmosphere, and the German clean vocals are actually done by another gentleman. I forget his name. I think his last name was Brandt, but I should have wrote it down. But there's a lot of extra stuff on here, and that kind of adds to the whole grand spectacle of this album, because over the course of every album these guys have put out, I think the sound has become more grand. It's still very riff-driven, it's still very powerful, and it is still very much in that vein of Bloodbath, but it's also becoming much more huge in terms of the scope. There are songs in here that are almost like symphonic death metal. Namely, the title track. The synth lead-in is almost like the opening of a Hitchcock film. It's very sinister and unsettling. It kind of sounds like vaguely like the score to Psycho, at least that's what I picked up on it, but it has that same sort of feel to it. And that goes into just this giant, massive, roaring song loaded with just sinister, evil riffs and vocals. But it's when the synths come back in, they come back in as a piano. You have this fluttering piano solo in here that adds a little bit of like gothic mystery to the song. There's even some church bells peppered in the song for additional creepiness. Not like it really needed it, but you add church bells to any sinister death metal song, doom metal song, well, any metal song, and yeah, all of a sudden church doesn't sound that welcoming. I'll be honest, it doesn't sound that welcoming anyway, but that's just me. The song In the Company of Wolves also has an almost sort of symphonic feel to it, because the synths are a little bit more lush and elaborate. They're definitely more gothic sounding right out front. The song actually features guest vocals from Steve Tucker, and honestly, between Steve and the frontman of this band, it sounds like two werewolves fucking snarling at each other. It's really kind of fucking cool. Like, there's this sort of just monstrous dynamic between the two of them, and it makes this song even more intense, as if it really needed it, because the riffs on this song are absolutely disgusting. And even the synths kind of hang in the background just to add atmosphere. They don't necessarily steal the show at any point, like maybe on the bridge of the title track, but that song kind of drops out the guitar work a little bit so the pianos can shine. The rest of the time, the synths are nice in the background, again, just complementing the music, seasoning it, making it sound more creepy. But when the guitars get a chance to showcase both brutality and melody, like Behold the Blessed Black, which I think is probably one of the best songs on there, you get some amazing riff work, some really cool descending tremolos that make it sound like you're descending down into hell. There's some really sick triplet chugs on there, some nice grooves, and honestly, like a little bit of mellow death, but it doesn't come across as like cheesy or too epic. It's still dark and dreary, maybe a little bit closer to Death Doom at times. I would say like a little bit of Paradise Lost, but Paradise Lost playing alongside of like Dismember, that doesn't sound like a bad time, like at all. Now, while some of this gets kind of close to like more symphonic bands, like, you know, maybe like a more groove-oriented Flesh God Apocalypse, this still stays firmly rooted in death metal, and again, a very old school and very European sound overall. At no point would I say any of this comes across as blackened, but it is definitely very sinister, evil, and doomy, but it still packs like death metal brutality to it. But it does have some issues. I do think sometimes it gets a little transition happy in terms of like breaking off from a solid riff or a solid groove, like not taking it a couple more measures. And there is an issue with the vocals. While I like the delivery, I think his roar is absolutely fantastic and his scream is really good, and all the other guest vocals on here are really good too. There's just occasionally too much of them. It is almost a constant din of vocals, again, coming in layers from different points of the room. It just becomes too clogged with vocals. And that's a bit of an issue, because I like hearing just, you know, good sections where it's just the instrumental section, like just kind of hammered on a riff, a good groove, a blast beat, whatever. Again, not really an issue with the vocal style at all. It's awesome. It's very fucking powerful. It's just on there too much. And while the lead work I think is really good in here, it is very short for the most part. Like, there are moments on here where, you know, the vocals jump back in after a lead where it's like, maybe that lead could have gone on a little bit. And sometimes they're just cut off like really short. There is a quick lead on Behold the Blessed Black that is literally in there for just like a couple of licks and it is gone. And it isn't as though like it's an arpeggio at the end of a riff to kind of like, you know, spice it up a bit. Like, it's a solo, but just for a second. And I kind of wondered why that got cut off, because immediately it goes into another transition where, you know, the vocals are going and we have another verse. I just thought it was a little strange. Honestly, I will say the one moment on here where the layered vocals and, you know, the constant din of them really worked in terms of the atmosphere, and that is the bridge on Bastard Creature. There is a section where it is layered groans and whispers and a spoken word, and it is fucking creepier than hell. Like, honestly, it's one of the most like unsettling bits in this entire album, and unsettling really isn't much of a thing on here. Like, this isn't subtle in terms of atmosphere. This is loud. This is shouting on a fucking mountaintop that, yes, I am fucking evil. It's not subtly whispering it in your ear at all. This album has all the subtlety of King Kong jogging through New York, but honestly, it works. And, you know, my complaints, I think, are relatively minor. You know, some of them did hamper the listen, but overall, this was still really fucking good. So I'm going to go ahead and give it 3.5 stars. This is another awesome album from this band that so far has put out nothing but awesome albums. I do think the whole, like, getting bigger and getting more grand with each release is kind of an interesting theme. But at a certain point, like, I think some things kind of need to be scaled back. The vocals, again, while good, they're just too much. Like, they're constantly going, and it's even kind of hard to follow along with lyrics because you have a lot of overlapping ones. But man, the riff work on here is absolutely sick. It has a great, sinister, dark vibe to it, but it's also just intensely brutal. I don't feel as though any of the songs are filler either. Like, they all stand out. They all have cool elements. The guest stars are fucking awesome on here. They made great use of them. I would like to hear more lead work hang out longer. I think the only leads that really hung out longer were Sammy Duet's leads on Bastard Creature, which were awesome, but I kind of would have liked to have heard, more in terms of, more leads on other songs, just kind of hang out a little bit longer because they're generally really good. If you're a fan of, again, like Bloodbath, Dismember, Entombed, but also like Paradise Lost, and maybe Behemoth too, strongly recommend checking this out. This is just pure fucking evil done in just grand fashion. Check it out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our store is there. We will be reloading, but that will have to wait until after Denver Death Fest, which takes place the 20th of April through the 22nd of April. Tickets are still available. 3-day passes are $60, 2-day passes are $45, and 1-day passes are $25. Come on out, hang out with us, watch a whole bunch of death metal bands, get drunk with us, and fucking talk about your favorite death metal albums, or point at the band and headbang and say, this is good, and I'll be like, you're fucking right, let's get another beer. There's even like food trucks and shit. That sounds fucking awesome. So yeah, if you're interested, the link is down below. Tickets are still available. Come out, hang out, watch some death metal. And of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that shit. It means the world to us. I know the thank you part of the video where I get all weird and awkward and I don't know what to say, so I say the same shit over and over again. But know that I always mean it. It's amazing doing this. You guys are a fucking huge reason for it. All the love you have given us, not entirely sure it's all deserved, but we appreciate it nonetheless, and that keeps us going. So stay tuned for a ton more content. And with that, we will catch you later.